advance. As I said, I'm a mom of four boys. I am a former candidate. I ran for Islip Town Council. I lost my 70%, but I know how hard it is to run, especially now that you can't canvass. I'm sorry, Laura, I do not envy you. Same thing to you, Steve. I don't envy you. Sure enough on my turn. Um, Born and raised on Long Island, so I'm a South Shore girl. So I definitely want to take care of our environment. Want to make sure that women, get to continue having their rights as we have them now. Trump has been an assault on the environment, it's been an assault on women's rights, it's been an assault on immigrants. So I definitely like to make sure that we take care of our own, especially because I live in Central Islip and we are a diverse community of immigrants. So this has to change. Um, as I said before, um, we have a few things coming up before I forget to mention. I'm going to hand this off to Vincent. We have some changes coming for August, which I'm sure Vincent will go over at the end, but just to while everybody's still here, August we're going to ramp it up a little more. We're going to start hosting more than one phone bank a week. We'll have them on Tuesdays at 6:30, and then on Sunday afternoons at 2:30. And we've also come up with the idea of adopting a local campaign. Since we are no longer calling New York, um, we are a blue state, so Biden doesn't have to worry about that. We are not really helping our down ballot devs necessarily here. So what we've come up with is that each week we'll work with a different local campaign to help them work on their call lists and have them ask for support for not just themselves, but for Biden. Part of our group's focus is not just to help Biden, but to help our down ballot Dems, and we just don't want to leave anybody behind. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Vincent or Donovan. Who should go? Should I let Donovan?
Cool. I'm going to go. Okay. Is he unmuted?
He's not unmuted.
There we go.
I'm on?
Yep, you're good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Suffolk County for Biden. For our first-time visitors, a hearty welcome from all of us. Just so you know, just a little bit about me real quick. My name is Donovan Curry. I'm a resident of the town of Islip. I live in Brentwood. I've ran for local office twice. I'm involved in this campaign because it's important, not just to me, but to my family, my friends, my neighbors. The biggest thing that came out today, I'm not sure if one of our guests is going to speak about it, but our great president wants to delay the election. We can't have that. It's not in his power. All right. After our guests have spoken and you have asked questions, I'll be around tonight. I'll be around for the entire thing. So if you have any questions for me, then I will happily answer.
All right. So my name is Vincent Vertuccio. I'm a high school student at Sayville High School. I'm a rising senior, and I care deeply about this election. I'm a co-chair as well at Senator Biden. I didn't get that point across. I care deeply about this election for a number of reasons. I've been involved in politics for a little while. My first major political act was doing a spattering of phone banking for Hillary Clinton in a very tragic election. And things have gone deeply downhill since, and it is time to correct a mistake. Every area of policy in the Trump administration has either been defined by gross incompetence or gross malevolence. We've either seen policy attacked or we've seen policy ignored. When we look at foreign policy, we see an administration that is so catastrophically ignored and been hostile to our allies that our global reputation has declined. Today we had Gallup polling on how Europe sees us. We've never been rated lower, even under Bush. Our global relations are in tatters. If we're talking about LGBT rights, something I'm personally care about because I have a stake in that, it has just been nothing but nonstop attacks. The Family Research Council is in this administration. Mike Pence is the vice president. And just today, or I think yesterday, we see our president openly tweeting racist dog whistles. He says, the suburban dream, we can't have low-income housing bothering suburbanites. I mean, that's not a dog whistle, that's a siren. We know what he means when he says that, and that's the president of the United States. This should not be who's representing us. This should not be our president. He empowers the worst in Americans, and he empowers the worst of white nationalism and hatred for immigrants and just hatred for every group in this country. It's been catastrophic. The incompetence is catastrophic, and this the pure, deep deep-seated racism and xenophobia in this administration is just intolerable. And luckily, we have Joe Biden as our nominee, someone who I don't just like because he's not Trump, although that's certainly something that I like about him. But I like Joe Biden because he is a man of great compassion. He is the exact person I'd want to rebuild after Trump, because the problem with Trump is that so much of the damage he's done is now ingrained, and there's so much we don't even know about. It's going to take a lot of work to rebuild, and it's going to take somebody who can really unite this country. And I really have faith in Joe, from his years of leadership and his work under Barack Obama, to be that person to rebuild our democracy and to rebuild our government and bring back the values of our country that we should be striving to embody more. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the wonderful Laura Ahearn to talk to us today. She's running for state senate. She's fantastic. She's been a victims advocate for a number of years. And yes, I'd like to turn it over to her.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to get to know you guys. I've been to one other meeting before, and I do plan on coming to more. It's just there's a lot going on with my campaign. So for those of you folks who, can you hear me okay? Because sometimes—
All good.
Yeah? Okay, good. For those of you who don't know me, I see some faces that I recognize, of course. Thank you for your support during the campaign. That was critical, and I appreciate it. We had a very spirited primary, and here we are on the other side. So for those of you who don't know me, my name again is Laura Ahearn. I am a New York State licensed social worker. I'm also a New York State licensed attorney. I'm a military mom. My youngest daughter, Chelsea, is a veteran, as is her husband. We're both in the Navy. And as Vincent said, I'm also a crime victim advocate. And for about 25 years, I have fought to keep our community safe here in Suffolk County, across New York State, and in some cases I got involved with federal legislation and helped to effect a change across all 50 states and across our various territories as well. So in Suffolk County, I've been very involved in developing, implementing, and managing programs that have affected great change for our community. And we've had significant results, and some of you folks are already aware of these types of results, but it's important because I can make a bridge with Joe Biden. And that's that when somebody is a victim of a crime, their lives, depending upon the crime, whether it's a sex crime victim or domestic violence victim or a victim of human trafficking, or even we do the gang violence for the county police department as well. So we provide victim services for those surviving family members. So in those cases where children were literally hunted down and murdered, my organization and my staff have been the ones that have provided those support services to those families to help them get back on their feet. We go to court with children and with adults, domestic violence victims, all types of victims, and we're their voice. And we have raised the voice for victims in this county and in this state, and in some cases in this country for 25 years. And along the way, you guys should know my tenacity, and I'm very dedicated, and I'm there for you. For me, when those Albany attorneys wouldn't let me move certain legislation because they said I just didn't understand, we persist, right? And I went to law school at night because I was a social worker, and I went to law school at night for 5 years while running the agency and became an attorney. So now I represent victims of sex crimes, pretty much, in my private law practice, and I'm moving away in a succession plan from the agency. So now, to make a bridge here with our incredible candidate, Joe Biden. Joe Biden is an incredibly well-respected leader who wants to see us in America prosper. We've been driven in the wrong direction. You talked a little bit about it, Vincent, with a leader who has no compassion. Not only does he have no compassion, but he has no capacity for empathy. And as a social worker and a person who has helped support families who are victims, hate crime victims, the folks who don't have a voice, giving those folks a voice has been what I've done for 25 years. And this man in this office has no capacity to have empathy for individuals who need us. So we need a leader who has that capacity not only, but is also well respected and has a long history of helping our most vulnerable. And Joe Biden, I'm happy to tell you, was one of the original sponsors of VAWA, which is Violence Against Women's Act. And VAWA is a federal law that actually changed, it does a lot, a real lot, but one of the things that it did is it changed how law enforcement responds to domestic violence victims. And it also gave funding to organizations across the whole country when it came to providing victims support and services. So it's complicated. When somebody becomes a victim of a crime, which we've seen lots of crimes going on right now in the community, but when somebody becomes a victim of a crime, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They need help. They need to have their pain be heard. They need to heal. So we're there for them, and that's what I've done for 25 years. We've been there for folks in the community. So now, though, with Joe Biden, he's the one that was there a long time ago. I guess that's about 30 years ago when he passed, when he sponsored and passed VAWA. So it is actually a pleasure for me to be able to speak about violence against women and Joe Biden, because he's going to do a lot, not only for everybody in our community, restore the respect in the White House that we need. He's going to expand upon Obamacare and make it even stronger, which we all know in New York State, we're struggling with the fact that not everyone has access to healthcare, and we've seen some of the real serious problems in our healthcare system with COVID. So we're so happy he's going to expand upon and strengthen Obamacare. He's planning on boosting teacher pay, giving citizenship for our dreamers, and recommitting America to the Paris Agreement. There's so much that we can do together, all of us, to help Joe Biden get elected. And I'm one of those persons who is standing in line in support fully and wholeheartedly. So guys, I'm going to do everything that we can when we're on the campaign path. And I really appreciate your support as well.
Thank you so much. And something that I've heard on, I guess, Twitter, and which is where I get my inspirational quotes from, I suppose, is that so someone's grandmother was saying this to them, is that when you watch the news and you see something tragic, a violent crime, a gang shooting, something horrible, what you should do is you should look for the people who show up afterwards to make a change, to make things better, to help the people in suffering, and then focus on that good. And that is you, Laura. You are the person who comes in and makes a difference and gets at the problem and helps the victims. And that's inspiring, and it's amazing. And I'm so happy to have you running for office and bring that spirit up to Albany. So
thanks, Vincent. And I'll tell you, with Palumbo, we have some serious problems. This is a guy who voted consistently against women's reproductive rights, has voted against equal pay for women, and ending pregnancy discrimination. I mean, this is an individual who we can't trust. So we have a lot to fight for here, because we don't. The last thing in the world we need is to continue this seat under Republican rule. It's been over 100 years that Republicans have had control of this seat, and it's time. I mean, we have so many goals under climate leadership and Community Protection Act. And the only way we're going to reach those goals is with climate believers, not climate deniers. And these guys are just deniers. And, we have really, really aggressive goals that we have to meet with wind power. And the only way that's going to happen is with us Democrats.
Yep. It baffles my mind always when, politicians, Republicans elected on Long Island, don't take action on climate change, because you're living in a coastal community. It's so self-harming to basically welcome the rising tides, because
we were just saying before this started, there are shark sightings all over our beaches because they're starving.
Exactly.
How are you going to enjoy our beaches and our coasts if we can't go into the water, especially now when there's nothing else to do? That's a big part of our financial industry for half a year. I mean, let's be realistic here. That's literally shooting yourself in the foot. if they're not able to find food, I worked in a boat store for a few years with my husband, and we would hear year after year, captain after captain, how much harder their job is getting, not even just because of the price of gas skyrocketing, because there's less and less fish. So this is a really big industry for New York, whether it be for tourism or for seafood. And we all both heard stories, I think, from our older parents or grandparents about how they would go clamming or get mussels, because there would be these huge beds, and that's not existent anymore.
No,
now you
I
need
know.
permits to go crabbing because there's so few compared to what there was when I was a kid.
Exactly. I remember, and I so appreciate your situation with your 4 kids there, because I didn't have 4. I had double trouble, but I didn't have 4. My organization, I have so much respect for what you're doing, because I started the organization literally from a room in my home. And my 2 kids, and I always say there were 1 on each knee. So you got to have 1 here, and 1 here, and 1 on each knee. And that's not
everywhere.
So that shows a tremendous commitment. But, I'm a big angler, and it used to be that when I was, I grew up in Patchogue, and I actually fished on the L Dock, which is now called the Mascot Dock, at the end of South Ocean Avenue. And it used to be that there were flounder, all the time we would go flounder fishing, and blue claw crabs were great at the dock. Now you're not seeing that until, really far out. And, I've spoken with a lot of the fishermen out east, and, our water is the most polluted in the state, our groundwater. And we have nitrogen leaking from our cesspools into our aquifer. And we have to take action. And these are all things that require a tremendous amount of collaboration on a state and federal level. So I'm committed to working with Nancy as well, and our other state senators, to ensure that we can bring any kind of incentives here to help install those IA nitrogen reducing septic systems. And also getting back to fishing, to fish and actually marine life, we are the home, we're about 1,000 miles of shoreline, and we're the home to 3 estuaries in Senate District 1. And estuaries are those, what they call Mother Nature's breeding grounds, where wildlife, or Mother Nature's nursery, where wildlife and marine life and birds breed. So we have a lot to protect. And, this continual use of fertilizer and, the pollution leaking into the waters surrounding Long Island, that's affecting not only the commercial fishermen, but also tourism. We rely on, you mentioned tourism, we rely on tourism and farming as well. So we have a lot at stake here, and we have a lot to protect.
Yep, it's so true, and it's just such an important issue. It just amazes me that certain politicians just don't care about it. So with that, I'd like to open up to questions. So if you have a question and you are in the Zoom tonight, which I guess since you're listening to me, all of you are. So if you have a question, you can just type it right in the chat and I will read it out. But as those come in, I actually did get a question submitted beforehand by email by someone who could not come tonight but wanted to ask you. So I'm going to pull that up for myself. Okay. Lawrence Jackson asks, Eastern Long Island was home to a great deal of Obama-Trump voters, and a lot of these people split their tickets in 2018, voting for people like Tom DiNapoli, some of them for Gershon, some of them for Zeldin, but still remaining swing voters. How do you plan on appealing to those type of voters in your race?
That's a great question. So I have such a diverse background because I'm a victim services provider. So I see the world through the lens of an individual that has worked to raise the volume for those who have been oppressed or been victims or have just needed assistance throughout their lifetime or at any point in their life. So I see through the lens of the social worker and a human services provider. And I also see through the lens of a person who has a lot of suffering and pain in their life because of their victimization and has had to self-medicate. And when you self-medicate, sometimes you become addicted. And when you become addicted, then you become a different person. And unfortunately, sometimes you will resort to any means to obtain drugs. And that ends up sometimes in arrests and convictions, and folks end up getting steered toward jail and prisons. And I'm a person who has worked very hard in the county steering folks away from jails and into jails and prisons and into problem-solving courts, which instead the mission of those courts is not only obviously accountability, but also to provide treatment, the necessary treatment that folks need. For example, I actually chair the Suffolk County's Legal System Subcommittee for the Task Force to Prevent Family Violence. And I've done that now for, I think it's about seven years or so. And in my role, what I did is I brought together the Office of Court Administration. At the time, it was administrative judge was Randall Hendricks, and we worked a program with County Executive Steve Ballone and the Office of Court Administration, and we brought judges in to talk to all of the stakeholders, so that's victim services providers, law enforcement, probation, the deputy sheriffs, mental health providers, youth providers, anybody who has a stake in a positive outcome. We brought them all together, and we have problem-solving court workshops being given by the individual judges of that court. So if you have a person you're working with in, say, a mental health capacity, and they end up getting arrested and they're in the system, we learned about, and I help people to learn about how to steer folks into those problem-solving courts: veterans court, mental health court, family treatment court, drug court, and some of the youth courts, so that folks are given the treatment that they deserve instead of being sent into incarceration. So to swing back to the original question, I'm really tough on crime when it comes to folks who molest children and sexually assault people. So that's something that is very, very much an issue of importance to all voters. So that tough on crime stance, along with the lens that I come from in providing human services, really does resonate with a lot of independents, blanks, and of course, I'm pro-choice, and I will fight for LGBTQ rights. That's also going to bring in a big, diverse group of folks.
So we have a question from Shivaji that I think you'll find interesting. So he says that he is now recently retired from a college he taught out for a number of years in New York City, and they have a pilot program of which 19 police officers graduated with a bachelor's in human services. He said, what do you think of a program for police officers in Suffolk, or just in general, where they can enter a human services program and leave a bachelor's or master's to go along with their police training to sort of enhance and address some of the concerns we've seen raised about police conduct lately? What do you think about a program like that?
So just to sort of give this a little bit of history too, because I think this is important for folks to know, because I've worked in the county for 2 decades with law enforcement on a local level, state police, Suffolk County Police, some of the 5 jurisdictions in my district, also the U.S. Marshals. So I've worked very closely with law enforcement, but as a social worker, as that person that a lot of folks want to see working with law enforcement. And here's something that happened when Marcelo Lucero, if you guys recall, Marcelo Lucero was a Hispanic man from Patchogue, and he was hunted down literally and murdered by a bunch of teenage boys. And it was such an outrage, and just, it really woke up all of Long Island. I think the whole entire world woke up to this hate crime. And what had occurred at that time is we created, legislator Gregory, actually, Dwayne Gregory, created the Hate Crimes Task Force. And I was appointed to that task force to be the victim services provider and the voice for victims in the community. And what we did was we helped law enforcement to learn more about the various types of support and services that are out there in the community. So when you have a law enforcement officer, whether it's local, state, or federal, responding to a crime or responding to a 911 call, anything can happen. absolutely anything can happen. So what we did in Suffolk County, and this was under Steve Ballone. Steve Ballone actually was the final passage of this incredible program we have right now in Suffolk County. And the legislature also was a big part of implementing the program. Every single crime in Suffolk County, we get that information, meaning the Crime Victim Center, which is full of all of our advocates that provide social services and support services. We actually get that information and we proactively call every victim of a violent crime, any elderly, minor, or disabled victim of a crime, and every hate crime, whether the hate crime is committed against a building, right? So somebody does a racial epithet or something, really explosive. If it's painted on a building, we're calling them and going in and doing programs. If it's a hate crime committed against an individual, we're providing victim support services. So we do a lot of the educational programs for law enforcement and created what's called a DIT, which is a decentralized institutional training. So it's a program that every cop has to take to learn about the various support services. So at the academy, they then also gave a lot of the cops training on bias. And that's as far as I knew back then what they did. But any kind of training that they can provide at the academies to help people to be able to respond when somebody has a need other than like there's a crime being committed, to help somebody respond is going to help law enforcement. And we're there as social workers and support services providers, not only my organization, but some of them, in some of the cases, actually go on site with the law enforcement officer when it's like say a domestic violence case. They'll actually go on site, a social worker, with the cop.
Fantastic. And that was great detail in there. So a question from Trisha. Do you think you're going to get the working families line?
I really don't know what the status of that is, but I believe that's going to be made available to us. Yes.
So Steve Polgar, who is also another candidate running for assembly, he's great. He asked,
Steve, how you doing?
First
I
of all,
don't see anybody. All I see is the speaker talking. So I don't know what my view is a little messed up.
So I think if you hit like
it.
gallery view, it lets you see everybody.
Hi Trisha, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, okay, there we go. I changed the view. Now I get to see everybody.
Steve asks, first of all, he says, thank you for all your work in the community for the last 25 years. He says, Biden has been a very prominent supporter of trained other public transportation. He's, the king of Amtrak. How would you want to help improve public transportation in SD1 and all of New York?
So that's a really great question, Steve, because at this point, folks in Port Jefferson have to change in Huntington to get on a different train because it's diesel powered. So one of the first things that should have happened but didn't happen was there was supposed to be funding set for Port Jeff for that electrification, and that never happened. And then I met with Assemblyman Engelbright, Steve, and he and I talked a lot about electrifying public transportation, making more investment in that for the future. So that's something on the radar. We absolutely have to electrify because we have to reduce our carbon footprint if we're going to reach our climate goals.
And I totally agree with you. And I'm a big train fan myself. So
I wish we would raise our tracks. That one, they're all raised. And it's wonderful. I live just south of the tracks now, and it's misery every time the train comes in. It's awful. I actually have a question for you, Laura. You touched on how drugs and alcohol can affect people and their future behavior. Oftentimes, as you know, it's a vicious cycle. I come from a family where many people struggled with those issues, but one of the biggest things that we had the hardest time with was getting available beds and getting it covered by insurance companies. It's still a really big problem. Even if you are fortunate enough to have coverage, there's not enough beds. Is there a way that you could be a supporter or even find a way to create more beds, especially in our system? A lot of them are private. And that's also another thing. Even if your insurance covers said rehab, it's only a percentage, and a lot of these beds are thousands of dollars a day.
They are, and we had that problem. I also am a part of the county's human trafficking initiative. So my advocates are in the human trafficking court. So we have a lot of women that are addicted to opioids, and their pimps keep them addicted to keep them in the sex trafficking, slavery, basically. So we have had that problem so much. It's so frustrating. We've had to try to find beds for folks all the way upstate New York. And I will do everything I can to help with that. And it really does come down to making it a priority. And drug and alcohol abuse is something that we see a lot of when folks are targeted as children, when they've endured trauma. And for any of you folks that are human services providers, you know that we now can use a scale to determine what kind of trauma folks have endured when they were children, and that becomes helpful for social services providers and for human services providers to know what direction to go in with their treatment. So for me, it's really critical that we provide those services, because one way or another, those folks are suffering. And if we don't help them now, it gets worse. The suffering gets worse, and then their life and their children are affected. And eventually, if they become incarcerated because they either got caught or got involved in something desperate to fuel their habit, one way or another, we're paying for it. So the budget has to be appropriately shifted into the direction to ensure that we have the services that we need. And I'm also, because I'm a social worker, KSACs are really wonderful. They dedicate their lives to helping folks that are drug addicted. And what I'd like to see also is not just the KSAC, but then after the KSAC to do some really heavy duty psychotherapy to get to the bottom of what the issue is, because the drug and alcohol abuse, we all know, is on the surface, but beneath that, we have what might be happening that is driving the addiction. So I'd like to go a step further and really explore possibilities to add that additional mental health requirement, and maybe we can change insurance companies, coverages to have that as part of what they have to do to help folks that are drug and alcohol addicted.
So Josh Banfield, who also ran for school board recently, was a great candidate. He asked, what are your thoughts on the recent police reforms passed by the state Senate and Assembly and the governor signed, and your thoughts on police unions and their role in the political sphere?
So for me, I have a lot of experience with law enforcement. So law enforcement have been the organization's partners in locking up sexual predators that are seriously raping 5-year-olds and forcibly raping children at gunpoint and teenagers at gunpoint. So my perspective comes from the lens of a lot of the detectives and the patrol cops that have been helpful for victims and in investigating cases and in helping the district attorney's office to move forward with cases. So one of the pieces of police reform that I really like a lot is the fact that they're wanting to have each of the jurisdictions sit down, and we've had this discussion with the district attorney's office, sit down, so it would be the sheriff, the district attorney, the legislature, and the executive, and the police commissioner, bring stakeholders together to talk about what the needs are in our community. Because every community is different. What's right for Buffalo may not be what's right for New York City, and what's right for New York City may not be what's right for Westchester County, and even what's right for Nassau County may not be what's right for Suffolk County. So I'm looking forward to being part of that, and I really am anxious to see what they come up with.
Fantastic. And this is going on for a little while. We're just sort of waiting for our next guest. His state Senate business, runs on forever, as you'll soon learn as our hopefully upcoming state senator. But so another question I got from Justin was, a lot of young voters don't vote. Young voter turnout, especially on Long Island and in New York, is tragically low. How do you plan on engaging with the younger voter demographic in your district?
So, it's not easy to engage with the younger voter, but I really feel very strongly that we need to make it a lot easier to vote. I think that some of the changes that have been made have really given us a voice, but I think we need to do a lot more. So these absentee ballots, having the absentee ballot applications sent directly to folks, I think is great. And I would be even supportive of having the ballots. So I think the way to deal with that is to make it as easy as possible for our young folks to vote. Because I remember when I was younger, that's not something that was on my mind because you're working, you're going to school. I remember those days. I mean, for me, I paid for college my own every step of the way. It's not easy working 2 jobs and sometimes 3 jobs and going to school and getting your homework done and in some cases, raising children as well. So the easier we make it, the better. But I think some of the outreach too, has to do with some of the committees. A lot of the like Suffolk Progressives, they have a lot of young folks that are members there. I think that helps a lot too. So I think their outreach is going to make a big difference. I see Senator Martinez coming in. Hey, Monica.
Hey.
How are you?
You're muted.
So good to see
You're
you.
muted.
Many people will want me to stay muted, but
It's great to see you, Senator Martinez.
Good to see you.
So I'm going to give it back to Vincent. Thank you guys for having me. I'll definitely stay and listen to Senator Martinez.
And thank you so much,
pleasure,
Laura.
Thank you.
As Leanne said, absolute pleasure. You did a great job, and thank you for sticking with us through some, great and some tough questions. I really appreciate it. You're fantastic,
no worries.
And I cannot wait to see you representing Long Island.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you, everyone, for your support.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. So I'd like to pass it along now to who is my state senator, the wonderful Monica Martinez.
Thanks, Vincent, and thank you for helping me out on Facebook once in a while. People can be cruel, but hey, it makes us stronger, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm sorry for the delay. I had a screening right before this, and obviously I need all the endorsements possible to continue the great work that we're doing in the state Senate. And I'm looking forward to having Ms. Laura Ahearn join me up. Maybe we can be travel buddies because it's a lonely ride going up to Albany. But I'm excited that she's running. She's an amazing woman, and I know that we're going to see great things from her, as we already have here on Long Island. But again, I'm Monica Martinez, New York State Senator representing the 3rd District. This is my first re-election. I am proud to be a Biden delegate. And just, I have to brag. Sometimes you got to brag, right? Got the highest votes, in the entire Suffolk County ballot. So that was exciting. So I'm very proud to be representing our next president, hopeful, and that's our Mr. Joe Biden. You know what's actually pretty cool too? My cousin works for Amtrak, and he was on the train, and my cousin got a picture with him, and she said, my sister, my cousin works for the state government, but she didn't really know that I was a delegate. So but it was actually pretty cool. But thank you for having me, and obviously I'm sure you have questions, and just fire away and I will answer your questions.
Before you start questions, I have to ask, as your friend and your constituent, tell us about your race, some of your accomplishments, some of the things you've done up in Albany. You guys had a big couple of weeks.
Well, it's been, I will tell you, it has been an amazing year and a half thus far. We have accomplished so much in the New York State Senate, bills that have been stagnant, I guess you could say, in our state government for decades. And we were able to accomplish so much with the delegation that has just been elected. We have more women in government now, something that people thought would never happen. We're celebrating the 19th Amendment, the 100-year anniversary of the women's suffrage movement, which is huge. So we are definitely making sure that we move forward. In terms of my campaign, it is a little hectic in our times, but it's something that I take with every single race. I make sure that I don't take it for granted. It's something that I run as if I'm losing, right? And it makes me work harder. but it's going to be a tough one, as it always is. My opponent is attacking me on just one major issue, and that issue is not backing the blue, our law enforcement, and pretty much saying that I don't support community safety, when we all know that's very untrue. That's a blatant lie being given by my opponent, because clearly all I've done is try to make our community safer, and by doing that, has been working with law officers, law enforcement, providing money to our districts to prevent gang violence. I see that Diane is here. We have passed common sense gun legislation. We have made sure that our workers in the state of New York are protected. We have protected children. We have protected women. Just with my own bills that I have passed, the two that I passed last year that have been stagnant in the New York State Senate for at least 10 years, were to protect women, and that women and actually men and victims as a whole. And it's my revenge porn bill, known as revenge porn. And that's the illegal dissemination of intimate images without the consent of someone. And and every bill that I've done has come because of a personal experience that I have had. My other bill was Shannon's Law, and that's also for women, making sure that our women have the right to get a mammogram and have insurance cover it. And what has made things so nice for us this year is the fact that we have been able to talk to people, where in the past the Senate Republicans never really spoke to lobbyists or see where we can go and really pass common sense legislation on every topic. We have protected children with our Child's Victim Act, where you can, we have so many children that have been abused by people and they have not been able to come forward and express their feelings or even file civil lawsuit. So we've definitely done a lot. I mean, just recently too, state of New York did not have surrogacy, and really bringing families together. People who can't have children are now able to stay in the state of New York and find people that can help them. And that's something that we're trying to work within, our budget and our policy, and just trying to make sure that we get that done here in the state of New York. We have done environmental legislation just recently, and this is something that I am proud of as a co-sponsor, is the fact that while as a county legislator, if you remember, we had the toxic dumping in one of our children's park in Brentwood, Roberto Clemente Park. 50,000 tons of toxic debris was in a park where we had children sledding down a mound which was full of asbestos, DDT, you name it, the hazard material was in there. And we were able to just recently pass legislation to hold those accountable, because if you really look at toxic dumping across the state, where do they go? Where do these scrupulous individuals go to commit these egregious acts? They go to the most vulnerable communities because they know they're not going to speak. They go to the minority communities because they know that nothing's going to happen. And that has to stop. We need to make sure that people are held accountable. So that's something that I'm so proud that I co-sponsored, and something that started with me as a county legislator. I was kind of that whistleblower. I didn't really care because we needed to protect our community, and I'm so proud of that. We've done offshore drilling ban. That has been another environmental issue that we've done. We have reduced greenhouse emissions. I mean, this is something that the state of New York has done in the last year and a half that has not been able to be done in the last 10 years that was held by a different party. And I think it speaks volumes of what we can do as a group that cares about New York and our children. I'm also proud of the money that we have brought into our schools. This is record funding that we were able to secure last year for our schools in the 3rd senatorial district. And we're going to continue doing that. We were able to fund certain projects in our district, whether it's construction, sewers, new parks for kids. It's been a busy year and a half. As you have me speaking here of everything we've done.
Oh no, she froze.
Oh,
Oh.
Continue doing the great work. I need to get reelected. So that's how the campaign's going.
And you didn't even mention the voting rights. We now will have automatic voter registration. As someone who loves registering voters,
Oh, yes.
sitting at a table in the middle of a heat wave, I'm very excited about that.
And you know what, Leon, you're right. You know, there's so much that we've done that I forget. But that's one of the biggest accomplishments that we've also done is increasing voter participation, right? There is no reason why we can have individuals who can't participate in the voting process. You know, the suppression of voting has to stop. And this is something that we expanded in making sure that we are able to do this in the state of New York. Other states do it, so why are we lagging? We should be the state that, you know, that's in the forefront. And of course, you know, one of my biggest passions, aside from children and women, obviously, are my furry babies. You know, and one of the issues that I'm trying to get people to understand is that when you have animal abuse, you have other types of crime. You have crimes against other humans, statistically proven. When someone does harm on an animal, they're more likely to do harm on another human. And we have seen that time and time again. Our women are victims of domestic violence. Sometimes they stay in the environment that they're in because they don't want to leave their pet. And that's something that I need people to really start realizing why animal welfare is so important, because it literally is the catalyst to other things that happen. So that's something that we're also working on in the state of New York. We have also increased rights for our LGBTQ plus community. Things that never had been done in the state of New York are now being done. Conversion therapy ban, removal of the gay panic defense. You know, just we've done some great things, ladies and gentlemen. But we need to continue. We need to continue doing so. And I'm looking forward to it.
and I think it speaks volumes to Senator Martinez and just the Senate Democrats in general, the level of leadership they've embodied, in that it is difficult to actually remember just how many accomplishments they have over these, you know, year or two. It is really amazing how much we've seen. You know, we have to every couple of weeks to get a new headline about some exciting new progressive legislation that's been passed. It's really fantastic. So I have a few questions, some in the chat, but I'm going to start off with one that was emailed beforehand. Someone who couldn't make it tonight, and they asked a similar question to Laura. Your district has, especially in the further out east parts, the sort of Mastic-Shirley zone, a lot of Obama-Trump voters. And that was an area that was tough in your race in 2018 because your opponent was from there. I know you've been working in that area. So how do you think that you can appeal to those types of swing voters?
You know, that's a great question, Vincent. And I think I have proven in terms of my voting record that I'm a proud Democrat, but I am also an individual that is willing to sit down and talk, right? I am not one that just goes with the flow, if that makes sense. I'm a person who, I don't want to just say yes. I want to know. I want to become educated on the topic. You know, sometimes people say, can you please sign on to this bill because it will do this and that. I'm a teacher, right? And I've always taught my students to do their homework first and become educated in the topic, so they become informed decision makers. And that's really what we are trying to do. And in terms of just, you know, with those swing voters, honestly, what I am seeing, and that what I've seen in the last year and a half, people are tired of the political divisiveness. People are tired that we bring politics into government. When we are governing, you are looking at the person. You're not, when someone calls my office, I'm not asking them what their political affiliation is. We are helping. That's what we're there for. It's constituent services. It's passing legislation that's going to possibly impact the lives of people. And Vincent, you know what people want? People want a human. People want humans. People want to actually be able to relay to someone and have a rapport with someone, and not feel that then when they call an office they will not be taken care of. People just want a representative who will do the right thing and take the politics out and really just focus on the governance. And that's, you know, and it's so unfortunate sometimes our elections are every year, you know, every 2 years, because it's a short period of time to do a lot. And we've done a lot, but those swing voters, I was having this conversation yesterday because, we just did a polling, and it's humanizing. It's just making someone human. These are everyday Americans, and we shouldn't take them for granted. They are hardworking individuals. Many of them have been impacted by COVID. We really need to find ways to just have people just be normal. I don't even know that's the end. That's how I feel. Because it's just letting people know, at least in my district, that I hear them. I hear them loud and clear. I hear their concerns. I hear what they want me to do, and I will do what's best in for the district, but as the state as a whole. And there will be times, and you have seen this, those of you who know me here, there will be times that I have gone against the Democratic Party, right? And it's not because I'm not a Democrat, but it's because for me, it was the right thing to do. And the one thing that I have always said, that I will never compromise my morals and my ethics when it comes to governance and politics. Because the day that happens, I'm done. I need to stay true to myself. And I think people appreciate that. And I think people enjoy having candid conversations and seeing how we can work together. And that's what people really want.
That was great. And I know you mentioned your office and people don't come in with partisan affiliation. That's totally true. But just talking about your office, I love your new office in Patchogue. It's so pretty. But Irene Angelis asked sort of what's been going on with the unemployment situation and getting claims paid. I know you've been working a lot on that. If you want to speak to that a little bit.
Thank you. No, that was a big thing for me. The forfeiture days, which was, I'm proud to say that I championed that issue. It's very unfortunate sometimes that when I say we, I don't want to include myself because I was a champion of not doing that, right? But we had individuals who, unfortunately, for whether it was something that was not for a fault of their own, but that weren't receiving payments, right? And we were trying to make sure that people receive what they needed. Department of Labor was completely overburdened, not even, so I see something here, can I tell it directly? So I'm not sure so then what's the question in terms of claims? So if someone has an issue with unemployment and they haven't been given money yet, they should call my office and we will connect them with the Department of Labor if that's the question that Irene has right now.
Yeah, but, Hi, Senator Martinez. Thank you. Is it okay if I just speak directly?
Totally fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm talking about is initially the Department of Labor has processed some claims incorrectly from the start. I'm one of them. So they were underpaying me since March. They were shorting me by $185. They fixed it on June 14th. But they owe me like $2,000. And I'm sorry, but that's a lot of money. I earned that money. And I've been trying to get them to fix this for almost 8 weeks. They claim they're fixing it, and I still don't see the money. And I've been—
All right, Irene, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you call my office directly?
Okay. Which office?
The district office, the 631, that's great, I don't even know my own number. 360.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Irene. Let me get you the number.
Okay, thank you. I'm so frustrated.
And as you should be. But if you have cases, we'll get, that's what we've been doing the entire time. It's not only forfeit days, but we've been dealing with situations such as yours where, paperwork was done incorrectly, and you're owed money. So we have dealt with every possible case that people have gone through during this pandemic. So just definitely give us a call. But just so you know, one of the things that we do have to do in order to help you, Irene, is that when you do call my office will ask for your social security number to expedite the claim.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you provide the info, we discard it. All right. So
okay, no problem. I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. But we do need it to move forward. But the number is 631-360-3356.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And just give us a call. I'll give my office a heads up that you will be calling.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So Steve Polgar, who is another wonderful candidate here running for assembly a little further east. I think it's some overlap. He said
A lot of overlap.
A lot of overlap. Hi, Senator. Thank you for your proactive approach to governance. What do you think needs to be done to improve the water quality on Long Island?
That's one of the biggest issues that people don't realize, that here on Long Island, that we actually are surrounded by water. People forget that we are literally sinking every single day, little by little. And the only way that we can actually help in our sole aquifer that provides our water is sewer funding and making sure that we fight for that money. I've been able to secure money for sewers, not just at the Oakdale area, but also over in the East End, the Massac Shirley area that unfortunately sees so much flooding, and it's horrible. So we definitely need to make sure that we start doing that. We also need to start doing more of banning on pesticides, making sure that whatever is seeping through our seeping into our aquifers needs to be banned. So, and then again, you go into the, toxin dumping, making sure that we are really taking care of our environment, our climate, preserving our wetlands. I mean, that's the only way that we're going to provide cleaner water. And as you know, Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone, his mission has always been to make sure that our water here in Suffolk County is the best water in the state of New York. And we've done a lot, and the county legislature has also been doing that, and I am continuing those same efforts. And we also passed a bill in the New York State Senate on the 1,4-dioxide in our cleaning products, and making sure that we ban that as well. So we have to speak with our environmentalists, our conservationists. We have to speak to the experts. We're lawmakers, right? And we become experts in a specific field, but you become experts when you're speaking to people who are actually out on the field doing this. So it's just speaking to them and seeing what it is that we can do.
Fantastic.
But it's all money, money, money.
Isn't that everything in government sometimes? But Kyle Kilkenny asks, thank you for joining us, Senator. Is it possible to expand mail-in voting, like no excuse absentee ballots, and make that a statute?
We are definitely doing no excuse absentee ballot during this time period for sure. And I know there are several bills that have been proposed. So I could potentially see this coming up, but it would have to be through a constitutional amendment in order for that to be done. But I am definitely a co-sponsor of it.
Fantastic. So I have sort of one last question here, unless anyone else has anything to submit. But Shivaji Sengupta asked, how do you feel about school reopening in the sort of Pat Med area and in general? What's the best way to handle that? As a former educator.
That's a great question for you.
Well, it's these are the times that I wish that I was a little more involved in the education system, right? I will tell you first and foremost, I am so proud of our students, and I am so proud of our teachers and our administrators. What they have done throughout this whole entire pandemic is something that is really admirable. And just staying on top of our students suffered so much. Some of our children regressed in education. Some of them regressed socially. Mental health was a huge issue throughout this whole entire time, both for our children and our staff members. But in reopening our schools, it has to be done carefully. I'm not going to lie to you. But I really hope that our schools are preparing. Our schools know what's best for their children at that moment in time, right? They're the ones that are seeing what is best for their building. Each school district is going to have a different plan. You have school systems such as Sachem, Longwood, William Floyd, Brentwood, who have a lot of children and not enough space. And then you have schools like Bayport, Blue Point, who have a very small population of students. Each plan will be different. And the first and foremost is the health and safety of our children, of our teachers, of our staff members. And honestly, in my heart, I want our kids to have that back. I've heard from children, and I love when I hear from kids, because they get it. You know, we don't really give them enough credit. Even when they're 11-year-old or 10-year-olds, they know what's happening. And I had several kids write me letters saying to go against Bill Gates, and I said, you better believe I'm going against Bill Gates. I said, I don't like that, you know, that process or what he wants to do. And I had kids saying to me, Senator Martinez, I miss my teachers. I miss my friends. I miss that socialization. I miss that cognitive connection that they have in schools. So it's a really tough question to even answer. But I will tell you, the process has to be calculated. We can't just say, hey, let's all go back to school and have our kids fall to this virus. We just had our first case at a day camp. And this virus is, you know, hits our children a lot harder than adults too, right? And we don't even know how this virus hits different people, based on blood type or whatever it is, you know, based on science. And I know people are really upset with the governor and how people feel that he is controlling us and so forth. But I commend him for keeping us safe and making sure that we follow science and do the right thing by everyone. So I know that was a long-winded question because it's really hard to even answer. But first and foremost, schools have to present their plan of action on how they will keep our students, our teachers, and staff members safe. And that is by far the utmost importance.
I actually have a question, if I can, Monica.
Of course.
Keeping so long. One of the things that happened, as you know, I have 2 autistic children, and they were hit really hard because they didn't get their normal routine. They didn't get their extra help. Everything is via teletherapy, which is really hard on everybody. Now that there's such a huge budget gap, which we are wholeheartedly aware of how we got here, and as much as I commend Governor Cuomo, I was pretty disappointed that on that panel there was no one there to represent special needs families or teachers or therapist aides, anybody. But there's a giant concern that a lot of that is going to end up falling on the backs of special needs children and handicapped people via their budget cuts, which are usually underfunded as it is. Is that something you're seeing being discussed up there?
Well, I will tell you, I participated in many of the hearings that took place, and I actually sat on the committee for the social and emotional needs for children. I felt that was a category that has been left out. I did write a letter to the governor to put a parent or a teacher who is familiar with children that do have IEPs that do need to be met by federal and state guidelines. It's mind-boggling how we have let these children fall through the cracks because of this, and clearly, yes, we were not prepared, but that is absolutely no excuse. We need to find ways to maintain what is the due process of that child, and that is through the IEPs. So we are seeing that, but I am literally advocating for that specific population because you're right, Leanne, they have been left out and they shouldn't have been left out.
I just had emailed them and I asked, is there something I could do to help for said panel? And it was, well, submit your suggestions. You guys haven't even released what you're discussing about. How do you want a suggestion when nobody knows what anything is?
You're absolutely right. And I'll actually will have my office send you the letter that I sent to the governor asking for someone to be representing these children. Because nobody was, right? And I was getting the calls from parents such as yourself at my office as to what is happening. But I will keep pushing to make sure that that we are protecting all populations.
I know that. I don't need the letter. I know. Before I forget, and while she's still here and you guys have a chance to ask her questions, on August 12th, Vincent and I are personally co-hosting a very big phone bank for Monica Martinez. We'll be joined by Richard Schaefer, Democratic chairman for our Suffolk County Dems, legislator Dwayne Gregory, who she had mentioned, who is now a councilman in Babylon, legislator Sammy Gonzalez, and legislator Jason Richburg will be joining us. So if you would like to RSVP, I'm going to put that in the chat now. And
well, if I can say, Leanne, thank you so much. That's a wonderful birthday gift because my birthday is on the 13th. I
know. I was trying for the 13th, but it just didn't work out.
So thank you for that. That means a lot. No, honestly, this is we can do a lot, you know, and one of the things that we need to do as Democrats is stick together. All right. And I will be blunt when I say this, but sometimes we Democrats go against our own party and in terms of fighting amongst each other, and that has to stop. And we need to work together as a collective party to win seats, to continue our seats, to bring in a president that can actually unite the country and bring people together instead of apart. And we very well know that to get united we stand, divided we fall. And this is exactly what we're seeing in our nation right now.
Democrats infighting? What? I've never heard of that.
But, who does that?
Yeah. So that's pretty much the extent of the questions we've gotten. So I really appreciate your time with us and your leadership. I'd like to just sort of close out with a little note Karen Pierce, who I'm sure you know, sent. I want to thank Senator Martinez. It was our campaign that grew concerned with the Roberto Clemente Park. Monica was the only elected willing to go to the park and follow through to keep our children safe and investigate that toxic dumping. And it's leadership like that that is why we need to reelect Monica. And I encourage you all to click that link and come to our phone bank and make sure we keep her in the state Senate. And thank you so much, Senator Martinez, for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And again, my apology for the delay, but thank you so much for having me. And Irene, I'm expecting your phone call. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
All righty.
Bye.
So thank you to the state senator, and thank you to everyone who came. So at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about, and Leanne and Donovan and all of us are going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Suffolk Biden, how you can get involved, a little bit of a status update, and then we're going to sort of take a couple of questions if you have any, and then we'll close out for the night. So first of all, we have our weekly phone bank that we've been doing, but exciting news for the upcoming week. Previously, we have only been doing Tuesdays at 6:30. So every Tuesday at 6:30, me and Leanne come. We do a virtual training with slides and everything on, how do you make phone calls? We make phone calls for about an hour, and then that's it. And if you come to these phone banks, I give you a free sticker. Now, unfortunately, Tuesday at 6:30 is not the best time for everybody because it is, prime dinner time when people work. I understand completely. We are expanding our phone bank capacity. We are now not only calling Tuesday at 6:30, although we still are. We are also going to be launching a Sunday phone bank. So in the upcoming week, we'll be doing a virtual phone bank and training Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2:30 p.m. You're welcome to come to both. I don't expect you to come to both. I encourage everyone to come to one phone bank a week. So I definitely encourage that. But you're, of course, welcome to come to both phone banks. But by adding that Sunday time, hopefully we have an availability for everybody. These are really easy to make calls, and what the benefit of making calls right now is that it's a supporter list. We're not calling swing voters at this point. It's a little too early. So you're calling people that we either know to be or expect to be Joe supporters in key swing states. So you're calling North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, whatever state you want to call, and you reach people we expect to be supporters. You ask them, are you supporting Joe? You talk a little bit about the issues, what's their top priority, and do you want to volunteer? They're great, and from what I've heard from our phone bankers, it's been extremely positive experiences because you're mostly calling supporters. You're not getting that hostile Trump voter on the phone. It's pleasant, sometimes long conversations, and you do get a wonderful, and I usually have one near me, but I appear to have neglected to, here we go. And if you come to our phone bank, you will get a wonderful Joe Biden bumper sticker, courtesy of Christian Alfarno with the Huntington Democratic Committee. They're beautiful. They pull right off your car. They don't break things. I love them. Put them right where your Trumpy neighbor can see them. But yes, that's all it takes is just an hour of phone banking, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and Sunday at 2:30. That's coming up next week. I'm going to go ahead and put links to those in the chat right now. those are our current scheduled upcoming events. Now, all I hear from you guys is we want to text bank, we want to write postcards, and so do I. And the status update of where we're at with that, we've been talking with the national campaign and New York for Biden. August 1st is a tentative, they think, launch date for, I believe, postcards. They want to get a postcard program coming. That's not something I can guarantee will be the date, but at a minimum, it'll be soon that we launch a postcard program, and then we'll come back with you for more details on exactly how we're going to coordinate that. The national campaign is currently building a texting platform. They had previously been using something called Pencil, which is like something they designed. It wasn't super effectual, but it was simple for their primary, but it's not good enough for a general election. So a new system is being put into place, and then we'll have text banking drives. I know that New York for Biden and the national campaign are working on that as well. Something Ronnie just said in the chat that I should emphasize as well is that the way we do our phone banks, our training and everything, that is not the only time you can phone bank. You can go on Joe Biden's website, hit on the action center, and make calls whenever you want, whenever you have a free minute, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. local times. If you're calling Arizona, obviously you can call later here for the time zone differences. If you haven't had much experience phone banking, I would suggest you come to one of our trainings, learn how to do it, and then feel free to make calls whenever you want. The only thing that we ask is that you simply let us know when you make calls and how many calls you make so we can keep a tally. I'm going to put the link in the chat now to our Tuesday phone bank. So this is our Tuesday one. Actually, this is our Sunday one. So what I just put, nope, it's our Tuesday one. Great. So in the chat now is the link to our Tuesday phone bank. It's a Zoom sign up, and all of this is going to be in our weekly newsletter. So if you come to this, we have your email, and we'll be sending it out every week, and I'll have links to all this. This will also be in the Facebook group. So if you can't click on it now, don't worry about it. So we have our 2:30 Sunday phone bank and our 6:30 p.m. phone bank on Tuesday. So that is our priority events. That is the status update on postcards and text banking. Leanne, do you have anything that I missed?
Once again, we are just going to do that Adopt the campaign. I believe the first campaign we're going to be working with is Steve Polgar's, which I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but that will be coming soon. We will be posting about that and sharing that information and that link. So we'll be calling 83, which also encompasses a lot of Monica's district. So rising tides lift all boats. The more Dems we could turn out, the more Dems will win seats, and that helps everyone, including Biden. So if you guys can get involved, if those things don't work for you, we are going to do our best. I think we have recorded a training. We can put that up on our YouTube. You can learn how to do it there and do it when it best works for you. But we'll definitely do what we can to help everybody get involved as much as possible, because as much as we all would love to canvas or text or postcard right now, phone calls to swing states is the best we got, and I would rather that than 4 years of Trump. So the more that you guys can give, the better off we all will be in 4 years. So thank you so much. It was great to see everybody.
And I put the link to our email in the chat as well. So if you make calls outside of a normal training, just shoot us an email, say, oh, I made 40 calls on Tuesday, they went well. That way I can put it in our spreadsheet. And if you want to get a sticker, you can give me your address and I'd be happy to mail you one. So those are upcoming events. Adopt a candidate is going to be a big thing we're doing. And the benefit of adopting a candidate is that not only are you helping elect a down ballot Dem here in Suffolk, you're also helping to get Biden's margin up. We're asking for both. And yes, Steve Polgar is getting a phone call, decline. And that is, so our first candidate is Steve Polgar. He's running for assembly a little further east on Long Island than me, over in like the sort of greater North Bellport, Middle Island, it's sort of a big circle of a district, but it's great. It flipped back and forth for years between different Democrat and Republican. It's been a swing seat for a while. It's a seat we can absolutely get back. He's a fantastic candidate with a public transportation focus, which I adore, and he has been 100% reliable in coming to all of our meetings, and I really appreciate that. So I really encourage you guys to come out to this one because he totally deserves our support. And he has a picture of a shark. Who'd have loved that? And
I was gonna, if I get, if I'm any more supportive, I might get like a Biden tattoo or something like that.
And if you come to Steve's event, you're getting your Biden sticker as well. That's also qualifies for a bumper sticker mailed from me. So those are our upcoming events. Those are our current priorities, latest news in the campaign. Only thing left is if you have any questions for me, Donovan, or Leanne, or just about Suffolk for Biden, what's going on, you can just unmute your microphone and ask. We'd be happy to take them, and then we'll wrap up for the night.
Before we move on, Vincent, a couple of things.
Sure.
Someone had asked earlier about poll watchers. Yes, we need volunteers for poll watchers. We're going to coordinate that through the local Suffolk County Democratic Committee because you have to be trained. Number one, those of you that are attorneys, we are going to need your help. This is very important, guys. We're going to need your help. So if you send me your information through the email that Vincent posts, Suffolk County for Biden at Gmail, I
Just
will
Suffolk
be
for Biden.
Suffolk for Biden at Gmail. I will get in touch with you. That's one. Next thing is the DNC starts August 17th. But just before that 17th, the week before, it's going to be very exciting. Just stay tuned. That's all I can tell you. Stay tuned. You're going to be excited. You're going to love it.
That's
While
interesting.
we build up the excitement.
Well, I hope you all enjoy the suspense. But and Ronnie's interested, so just shoot us an email, Ronnie, and we'll put you in contact with the poll watching. And yes, I don't know if you guys caught this article from the New York Times about a month ago. I put the email in the chat for you, Lita. About a month ago, the New York Times story, and the Trump campaign, because a recent court ruling allowed them to do this, they're going to hire tens of thousands of poll watchers to be at polling places across the country. Now, it might just be me, but I have absolutely no faith in the Trump campaign and the Republican Party to operate in good faith with these poll watchers. I think we all know that these poll watchers are going to be placed in majority minority communities, in marginalized communities, in heavily Democratic precincts, and they're going to serve as a form of voter intimidation. And it is very important that we as the Democratic Party have a presence and make sure that there is no interference in the electoral process and no votes are suppressed, because voter suppression is evil. So please, if you are interested, go ahead and email Suffolk for Biden at gmail.com, particularly if you're an attorney, because we need you, as Donovan said. So, any further questions? Any questions from anybody?
Can I please ask a question?
Of course.
What is a poll watcher?
Do you want to take that one, Donovan?
Yeah. So you are there basically to ensure that nobody that is legally allowed to vote is turned away. And also, if you see anything illegal or fishy going on, you do not interfere, but we will give you a number, a phone number where you can call and we will get that rectified. As it says, a poll watcher, you're basically there to watch, not to interfere in the process.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alrighty. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. I know that it is, not the most 7 o'clock on a Thursday night is not the best time for everybody. We all lead busy lives and we all have lots of Zooms in this new world we live in. But this is, as I said 1,000 times, a very important election, perhaps the most important election of our life. Biden wasn't the first candidate for most of us. He wasn't my first candidate, but he's a good candidate nonetheless. And getting out Trump is a absolute moral imperative. I'm thrilled to have you all here. I really hope to see you all at the phone banks coming up next week, Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2:30 p.m. The links are up in the chat, but will also be in the newsletter, so don't worry about that if you missed those. If you have any questions further, any interest in being a poll watcher or helping out with legal situations, or just anything to tell us whatsoever, Suffolk for Biden at gmail.com is the email to reach me, Leanne Donovan, at. We will respond promptly. It's great. And yes, make sure you're in our Facebook group. That'll be linked in the email as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
It's wonderful
everybody.
to see you all.
Yep.
Stay healthy.
Great to see you, everybody.
Everyone have a great night.
Feel better, Leanne.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Now to figure out how to end the meeting. Here we go. All right. Goodbye to my YouTube viewers watching the clip that's still recording.